Welcome to Interior Analysis. I'm Evan Westman,
I'm Jelani Kelly.
and today we're talking about Knives Out, directed and written by Ryan Johnson. So, I have had this on the list since I saw it in theaters, but you actually were the one to suggest that we do it or like push it forward. So,
Yeah, so I saw this. We're looking for a movie. My mom came up from Arizona Mother's Day weekend. We were looking for a movie that was free on Amazon because for some reason, even if you have Prime and Prime Video, there are movies on there that you still have to pay for in order to watch them, which makes no sense to me. But this is one of the ones that was free for right now. And I've been meaning to watch it since it came out, but it was never like at the forefront of my mind. So we watched it. I enjoyed it, even though I did find Daniel Craig's southern accent distracting.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then I rewatched it to like refresh myself on what happened in the movie because it had been a while since I watched it. We're recording this much later than it's not Mother's Day weekend anymore.
Yeah.
So. Daniel Craig's accent.
Daniel Craig, I love Daniel Craig. I think this might be my least favorite performance from him. I am not a fan of that accent that he does. I like the accent itself, and I like
Mm-hmm.
him. I don't like him doing this accent.
He's British, right? I've never
Yeah,
seen him in. I don't think I've seen him in any movie.
really.
Yeah, I just know he played Bond for like Skyfall, so he must
Hmm.
have been British for that.
Yeah, well, he's doing what's apparently going to be his last Bond this year, also with Ana de Armas.
Oh, what?
I don't know how the crossover with that happened, and I don't know how I'm gonna take it after seeing the two of them in this with likely a much different dynamic. I don't really know what Ana de Armas is gonna do in No Time to Die.
You think she's a Bond girl?
Right, but well, yes. I mean that's a fair assumption to make, but there are also like in the newer ones, like being a Bond girl more recently doesn't necessarily mean hooking up with James Bond
Oh,
anymore. Um,
that's all I knew them for.
well, it's a very understandable assumption to have because I think probably at least 95% of the time you'd be right.
Mm-hmm.
But recently there's been a 5% margin of error, I guess.
Okay, progressiveness for the win.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's been papers written about Bond becoming more progressive throughout the years, although it was a pretty low bar to clear from where they started, but we won't get into that now.
Yeah.
There's a lot that could be said about that, and a lot that has been said, though. So, I saw this is my third time seeing it. I saw it in theaters, like I said, and at the time, it was my favorite movie of 2019. I think I would still put it there. I will admit it was definitely the best the first time I saw it. Not because I've noticed more flaws, but because it's just one of those things where, like, it's a mystery. So it hits best when you know nothing.
Right.
I think it's good that you had a second viewing though, because like especially something like this, it's like you watch it the first time for the experience, and then the second time to catch everything that you missed and see all the little
Mm-hmm.
details. Yeah, I actually the second time I saw it was just a few months ago for a class. Actually, I think you took it, but this came out after you graduated, so it wouldn't have been on the syllabus. But it was a former guest on the show, Matt Caulfield. He did it as an example of like
Is it the literature class?
yeah, lit for screenwriters.
Did you do Tinker Tailor
We
for that
did.
yet?
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, it could be so good is the thing. Like it has such a good cast. Like I feel like I remember the dialogue being pretty good. It's just so damn
You do?
slow. I yeah, like I remember hearing it, like watching it, and I think I saw it back like sometime in high school. Um, so it wasn't my first time, and like great actors. I remember the dialogue being decent, but they just like make it. It's like aggressively boring filmmaking.
Gary Oldman wasn't speaking past his mustache in that movie. Most of the characters weren't like speaking up And I think that was like one of the only times I've ever fallen asleep in class because I found it so boring. There was like one guy that got shot in the beginning, I think, and then one guy at the end, and then in between there's just dialogue. Or so I think. I don't remember because I fell asleep.
I'm not gonna defend it. I just think it could have been great.
Probably. Wasn't Tom Hardy in it?
Yeah.
Was he in that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, he's a great guest. It's Tom Hardy, Cumberpatch, Gary Oldman,
Yeah.
Colin Firth,
Mm-hmm.
John Hurt, a couple of like Syrian Hins, I think, and Toby Jones and some other dude. I think I'm missing one, but it's a great cast. But anyway, to get back to it, like we watched it in that class as an example of a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
There was some like good discussion that came from it, I remember. I was happily surprised, just kind of like outside of anything that this movie does. I was really happily surprised at how well it's been received because it's like an original movie with no pre-existing IP. It's not a
It's not
sequel.
based off a book?
It's not based. No, it's completely original, and it just like had a great cast and a great script, and it did well. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not something we see a whole lot of anymore. And now it's getting two sequels apparently,
Nice.
which we can get into later. I was happily surprised at its success. So, what did you know about this beforehand? Because it's been out for a while, so you would have had some time to hear about stuff.
Nothing was spoiled for me ever, which is rare when movies been out for a while like this. Yeah, I didn't know much. I just expected an ensemble piece because I knew like five of the actors: Evans, Craig, Colette, Curtis, and Stanfield. And I was expecting like a class of personalities, much like Clue.
Mm-hmm.
It still didn't disappoint, but that was not what I was expecting from this. Like, and isn't yeah, there it looks like even the poster. It's like Harlan sitting in a chair, and all of his family is around him with the knives, and I'm like, okay, so I'm expecting like a lot of talking and funny interactions and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
No, there was a main character and it had a plot. So
Yeah, I had basically the same reaction. Like when because just before this was coming out, and like I had been following the marketing of it. I think I was like relatively anticipating it. I was wanting to see it in theaters like before it came out. I didn't just go on a whim.
mm-hmm.
But I know because I was interning in LA in like the couple months leading up to it and after. And I think there was like a one of the bus stops I waited at was right near this huge billboard for it. And I remembered like, getting the same sense you did. Like this is gonna be an ensemble piece. We're gonna get a lot of personalities and like, yeah, it's gonna be who done it and we're gonna be going back and forth the whole time. And like Ana de Armas is just like I really liked how they did it. Like it was a great trick to use, kind of, to like have her just be one of many in the marketing. Whereas I think I was looking at the posters just before we started. She's actually on the outside. Like she's
Mm-hmm.
maybe I don't want to say she's given the least prominence, but she's definitely not more prominent. Like, of course, the two that are, I guess, put in the forefront are Harlan and Benoit Blanc.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like the trailer too. I think Benoit Blanc was, it was showing like Daniel Craig's kind of going to be running the show. But aside from that, they don't really give any preference or like show one character more than another. So, yeah, definitely similar reaction to you there. We're going to get into our first topic, which is subverting a mystery, and we're going to tie in initial reactions with this. How well did you feel like you were able to predict the mystery and like connected with that? How much did it surprise you and at what points?
Whenever they reveal that the killer, at that point, when they show Marta was like the quote unquote cause for Harlan's death, is when I like stopped trying to guess and just enjoyed the movie from that point on, because I was like, oh well, there's my answer. Cool. And
Mm-hmm.
then from that point on, I was just rooting for her to get away with it and like cheering her on when she was like hiding the clues and stuff like that. But like I wasn't doing a whole lot of guessing because it didn't feel like they were even giving us that much. Like, everybody seemed to have a motive, and then by the time it got to a point where I was like, okay, so maybe we should start trying to piece together the information they've given us. Oh, it's Marta. Cool.
Yeah. So that brings me to a question I was thinking of with this is, do you think we even have enough information that anyone could predict it? Because at first glance, I kind of thought like, oh, it's one of those things where like it feels like it's drawing on information that we have. But as I was looking at it a little closer, I kind of started thinking, I'm not sure if we actually ever get enough information to predict exactly how it ends.
No, I don't think we were. And whenever mysteries do that, I think it's cheating.
But it feels less like cheating here. Because I agree with you on that, but I didn't feel cheated at the end of this.
I don't know. Because there was that one line that Blanc gave to Marta. And he was like, no, you never switched them in the first place because you're a good nurse. I was like, how were we supposed to predict that she wouldn't switch them ever? I know it's like tragic and all that Harlan actually wasn't dying. And it was a bit evident because like more than 6 minutes had passed.
Yeah.
When he was like on the couch.
That's kind of a giveaway.
I was like, wait, he still has his senses about him. She said 5 minutes and he was supposed to like be delirious and all this other stuff that morphine does to you. And he still had his wits about him. He was like looking at her in the eye and was like, all right, this is it to get. And then slashed his throat. And I was like, wait, isn't what?
So were you suspicious of it in that moment when you first saw
it?
Or okay.
Yeah, I was. I just never said
remember if
anything.
I was.
He said, yeah, I was trying to like keep track of that, the time that she gave it to him, and then like it must have been 6 minutes plus by the time he was like on the couch from when she gave it to him, and I was like, he should have been gone by now. Or close to it, or something should have been happening.
Yeah, showing some kind of symptoms.
there were no signs whatsoever. And I don't even know if she was paying attention to that in that moment, but you know, she thought she gave him poison, so I can understand why the heightened situation. Stressful. But I don't think there was enough there to, like, even in the 30 minutes, I don't think there was enough there to predict that ending. Or sorry,
right.
In that 30 minutes to predict Marta was the quote-unquote culprit, and then by the end, I still don't think there was enough to find out that, oh, she never swapped in the first place. Because we never saw Ransom do any of that. We never, like, we only had that line in that argument they kept going back to where he was like, whatever he said to Harlan before he stormed out on him. I forget the line.
Yeah, I think it's, I'm warning you.
Yeah,
the one.
I'm warning you.
I was noticing this time too. They really withhold Ransom for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like he barely comes up in the first hour, I think.
Right.
Because he doesn't get interviewed in the beginning.
I believed him when he had that conversation with her at the diner or wherever they were. Excuse me. He said, "You're still gonna give me my cut of the inheritance, but also F my family." That was still the plan for him, I think. Even once she told him everything, like, and then he kind of went off the rails and all that. But, like, I believed he was trying to help her and help himself and F his family all in one motion.
And I think him asking, like, the thing that really sells it is that he does ask for his cut of the inheritance. Because if not, that's suspicious.
Right.
But when he's getting, he's getting his share out of it. Because from her perspective and us as the audience, it's not, oh, he's being charitable. Why is he being charitable?
Right.
It's, okay, he's actually bargaining and, like, negotiating with her. I like that touch. Because I feel like a lesser writer would have taken that and been like, oh, maybe, like, are we supposed to trust this character? And already we're not, because we're going into it with our guard up, because it's a mystery.
Right.
In terms of, like, subverting a mystery, I feel like this just uses a lot of good strategies. Like, one thing I was really impressed with this time was, like, it's complicated enough that we can't guess it, and like we were saying, like, you know, it doesn't actually give us enough information. but it's also like not so complicated that we can't follow it,
Right.
which I think is a really impressive line to walk.
Mm-hmm.
I'm especially impressed with it because it's something that I never really do in my own writing. Like I think there was a period where I did really try to be like, okay, how can I like I think I was more so trying to mess with three act structure
Mm-hmm.
and like not be able to give the audience like predictable like familiar beats to latch onto and be like, oh, what's coming next? Like you really don't know with the way I'm doing it, and I don't really do that anymore. But I find it impressive when a writer can really anticipate the audience's reactions really well and not and I think we mentioned this when we did a study in pink, the Sherlock episode, the way that like every mystery story has to kind of be aware of what's been like the tricks that other mystery stories have pulled,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really tough. Like I find this mystery story compelling, but they're not I feel like they're not always the most compelling genre, but with this I was like he's just doing like such a good job tracking the information we have and messing with our expectations
Mm-hmm.
and maybe not so much our expectations, but like messing with what we know, I guess, in a really clever way
Mm-hmm.
where we actually are getting like truth, but half of a truth.
Yeah.
Do you ever like, we don't have to get into this too much, but like, do you ever try to do that when you're writing stuff? Like, try to pull the rug out from the audience? Because I don't so much. I just, and I'm not saying it's a bad strategy. I just don't do it
You
myself.
mean like mess
So,
with expectations?
yeah, or like try to set up like a big reveal or like try to lie to them in some way.
All the time.
Like,
I
like very, and like you're like consciously, intentionally doing that.
I love it. Yes. My novel will get to that point. I keep big.
Yeah, obviously don't spoil any of your own work
Yeah.
in talking about this, but
My novel will get to that point, and the third one I keep mentioning every time I mention the novel. There's a story I'm currently writing for free weekly, that I post the chapters for on a site, and I'm doing that with that story. But because it's set in the Descended universe, right? But it's like an Elseworld thing, so I can kill off whoever I want to kill off, and besides like the main character, because the story is titled "The Villain Wins" and it's from the point of view of the villain, so you know how it
oh
ends.
yeah, I feel like I've heard you talk about this a little
Yeah.
bit at some point.
Mm-hmm. So you're gonna know that she survives. She doesn't. It's not a cakewalk for her. Like she gets injured and all sorts of stuff happen, and it's about her. It's about how she interacts with the people around her. Expectations are they're thrown under the bus. They're stomped on and then run over a few more times by the bus in that story because people die left and right. And people traitors. There's all sorts. I love doing that just in stories in general, and I plan to do that with the shonen manga series I'm working on as well. Like that, I get part of my enjoyment out of writing from that, from just subverting expectations, not just for shock value, but because I like hearing about people's reactions. Well, that's just shock value, isn't it? So maybe.
Yeah, I've like gone back and forth with it. I think I've mentioned this on some other episode. Like, I enjoy being surprised
Mm-hmm.
as an audience member, but I also like, I think it's, I guess, a weakness of mine as a writer that I just don't feel like I am skilled at anticipating the audience's reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't try to because I feel like I'm probably not going to do it successfully. So I try to like make things feel earned rather than make things surprising.
Mm-hmm.
I think either is valuable, but I do find that like, you know, no matter how good your reveal is, you can only get it to hit for the audience once,
Mm-hmm.
which is still like that's fine. There's nothing, I'm not trying to take away from that. And especially like even if it only hits once, like one of the joys of rewatching is getting to see all those extra details, like without spoiling it. That's one of my favorite things about The Prestige, is that you have a certain set of information the first time, and then you go in with new eyes, and it just blows everything up into this like, wow, this movie is so freaking nuanced and awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't use any techniques, so I'm like, I don't know. Do you have any particular like techniques that you feel like you use when you're trying to like surprise the audience?
I just do what makes sense for the story. So doing that is what results in some of the shocking deaths or shocking events that happen. But they also, doing that, it could also go the other way where it's like their expectations come to fruition in that light, like, oh, this person should end up beating this person, and they do because it makes sense for the story. That happened for me, and it ended up changing part of my story with that online story I was writing about. Like, the character was going up, the main villain was going up against somebody that she should not have been able to defeat in a straight up fight, and she ends up fighting the character head on. And I was like, there's no way for me to write some BS method of her beating this person. And I guess, and I'm thinking the audience would expect her to win this fight because the title of the story is The Villain Wins. But I ended up changing it while I was writing, and I was like, it doesn't make sense for her to win, so I'm not going to write that. And she ends up going to jail because of that fight for a little while. So, because it didn't make sense for her to win, so I just effed with expectations there.
So do you feel like it's more based around logic or like character, like being true to your characters, or both?
Both. Definitely both. It's what the characters would do, because I like to think I know my characters pretty well, even though I don't write everything about them on paper. I like to think I know their personalities well and how they would handle situations when thrown in them. And also, you got to take that into account, and then logically, what would happen in this situation if these two personalities were to clash. So, yeah, it's both.
I think that is an important thing to do, and that's why like I think doing these like messing with the audience's expectations is so hard, because you can do something surprising that like is shocking to the audience in the moment, but then they finish the story and they're like, hold up, that doesn't make sense. Like they start finding the plot hole.
Right.
Or even if it's not a plot hole, it's like some kind of inconsistency. So that really cheapens it. Like to have it really land, you have to find the balance of it's surprising, but it's also consistent and makes sense when you unpack it. So it's a tough line to walk.
Right.
And I can't say I've ever done that. I don't really try to like go out of my way to make big reveals, but it's also like I'm not against them happening, but I think if at least the way I've been trying to write stuff in the past couple years or so, like if I ever have anything that is a reveal, it's by accident, I guess, or not necessarily accidental, but like it wasn't my intention. It didn't come from I want to shock the audience. It came from this is like consistent with what I want these characters to do, I guess. Reveals are hard, I think, is most of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And that's why this is so impressive, that it both has these great twists, but it's also consistent. There's a good video, it's pretty quick, I think, by Just Right, the YouTube channel, that's called How Knives Out, I think, switches genres twice, I think is the name of it. And it talks about like how it goes from first it's a mystery and then it's a crime movie once you find out that it's Marta who did it, and then it goes back to being a mystery when we get the big reveal at the end. I think it's a cool way to unpack it.
I like how all the family members had motives, but I'm not sure how to feel about the fact that none of them killed Harlan. I was expecting and that's the whole thing with expectations. I was expecting a whodunit. Like, okay, maybe this person done it. I'm just pointing fingers mentally at all these characters, but they all seem to have even motives. They were all cut off. Is the bottom line from any more money from Harlan. Really, any one of them could have done it from the beginning. So I'm not
which
sure
was
how to.
literally a tagline that was used for the movie.
Really?
Yeah, I think look up the posters. I think one of the taglines is "Hell, any of them could have done it."
Oh
And
my god.
then the other one that I remember seeing a lot was a "Who done it?" Like no one has ever done it. And the first time I saw that, I was like, "Oh, that's like a cute little wordplay." And then I saw the movie, and I was like, "That's actually maybe the most accurate summary of this movie."
Hell,
Tight.
any. Yep, hell, any of them could have done it. Oh my god.
Mm-hmm. And tied in with that, like like you were saying, they all had a motive, and like linked to that, they're all, or not all of them, but several of them are like guilty of things other than murder. I like
Right.
that I sometimes like that in mystery stories. Like sometimes I think it can get a little bit like overdone, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna say the movie for spoiler reasons, but there's one movie in particular that I think does a really good job with like somebody being innocent of the crime they are convicted of, but being guilty of a ton of other things, and they use it to really good effect.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a cool thing you can do, because especially in a movie like this where there's one crime, like it's not as if you can pull the clue thing where it's like everyone was a murderer, so it doesn't really have to choose.
Oh, wasn't that the train movie, Orient?
Oh, Murder on the Orient Express.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that, and I don't know if this is a blind spot, but I don't know how it ends or almost anything. I was actually going to see it, but then tying it back in with this, Last Jedi, directed by Rian Johnson, happened to come out the same day that I went, and it literally stole the theater from Murder on
Oof.
the Orient Express. So my dad and I went and saw
Oof.
Lady Bird instead, which was not to our liking. I know a lot of people do love that movie, but
Oof.
I was not a fan.
Should have sung The Last Jedi.
I did end up seeing Last Jedi like a week later, but we just picked the wrong night to go see the smaller movie of the week.
Yeah. I saw a YouTube video relevant in the slightest way possible, but this guy was in court for like stealing. It was a comedy video, and it was all like improv. So this guy was in court for like stealing this other cast member's identity, and he was in character, and it's like his way of making fun of that other cast member, and he just took their name and added a freaking as the middle name. This was like all the cast members were in court for this, and he was like, "Have I murdered people before? Yes, but I'm not being convicted of that. This is not what we're in court for." So I don't know. I just to mention that I actually haven't considered doing that in the story before. Like, you're being convicted of this crime. Oh, you didn't do that crime? Yeah, I didn't do that crime, but I'm guilty for all these other things, but you don't know that.
I feel like that does come up in comedy stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like SNL sketches, I feel like do that a lot, where they'll be like, "Oh, you're talking about that thing." No, I wasn't. Oh, well, don't worry about that then. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it does come up there sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
or sort of related, sort of not. I like doing this. I like trying to do this when I can in my own scenes, and I love seeing it in others where it'll be like an interrogation,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll be interrogating, like it'll look like they're interrogating somebody about one thing, but they're actually using it to like get them to slip up and tell them
About
some
something else.
yeah, something else that they don't know, but they kind of make it seem like they know it.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I think that's like one of the coolest things you can do with like an interrogation scene.
Oh, that was also, again, in the slightest bit of relevance. I love that in the beginning of this movie, where I think it was Lakeith Stanfield's character. I don't remember the detective's name.
Lieutenant Elliot is his
Elliot.
character.
Okay. And he was trying to like get some information out of Jamie Lee Curtis's character. And she was like, "Are you trying to get me to slander my father?" And then it just cuts. He was like, "Hell yeah!" The brother. And he was like, "Hell yeah!" He didn't own any of those books or something like that. I was like,
Yeah,
pretty
I
funny.
think I remember the moment you're talking about.
Yeah.
I also like tied in with this topic. I think Lakeith Stanfield's detective is like a pretty good version of the like straightforward kind of detective
Oh,
character that comes up a
yes,
lot in
absolutely.
these movies. And because, like, especially because he kind of ends up being like, a lot of times that character is like the quote unquote like dumb detective who's just like
Right.
not looking hard enough. They're like, yeah, I don't care, like, let's just get this over with. And he
Mm-hmm.
kind of does that, but he also ends up essentially being right. Like, his assessment of all the evidence is pretty much accurate. Like, he says Harlan cut his own throat, which he
Mm-hmm.
did. And like all this stuff, like all these motives that the characters has. He keeps saying to Benoit Blanc, "This is just weak sauce," and he's right. Like, he doesn't, like, he didn't actually solve the crime, but he did a good job in going about solving it.
Right.
So I like that,
I
like, he ends up not being totally correct, but he's bringing an intelligence to this case, and which is like by extension elevating the intelligence of this movie.
didn't he also say like something like that was the worst car chase I've ever been
That's the
in?
dumbest car chase of all time.
I just like Lakeith Stanfield as an
Mm-hmm.
actor, so I wouldn't be mad if I saw more of him in these movies. Like
I
he
was
was a
glad he
really good
finally
straight
got his
man.
Oscar nomination this year. Um,
For what was that
Judas
for?
and the Black Messiah.
I never saw that. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, I don't know where it is now because it dropped off of Max after the like 1 month thing that they're doing right now. So I
It
don't
was
know when
on
it.
Max. Damn, I missed that.
Yeah, it came out in like February. I happened to see it.
So he didn't win for it though.
He didn't win, but he gives. I was glad he got nominated, but I wish he'd got nominated for Get Out. I think he is like one of, and like Get Out has like basically everyone in that movie is on point for performances, but
For
like
sure.
I thought he did such a good job in
Mm-hmm.
that, like better than he does in Judas and the Black Messiah, but Judas and the Black Messiah is kind of more of an Oscar bait performance that he does in that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's good in this too for what little time he gets, both like his character and his performance.
Mm-hmm. He wasn't in Get Out that long though, was he? He was in the beginning, the very beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and then he was at the party. Was he anywhere else?
No, but like I thought he just killed it in those
Mm.
like 5 minutes of screen time that
Oh,
he
okay,
has.
okay.
We'll get into Get Out when we get into Get Out, but I
in,
like him in it.
get in to get out.
Get into Get Out. Oh, damn it! How do I keep doing this? Like
Evan, all the
unintentional.
time, at
I think
least
we
once per
gotta have like a
episode.
running
Dog.
counter because it's got to be up in like the 20s by now.
Once per episode, at least.
We got to get like, I don't know. It's got to be like a swear jar thing. Like, we donate money every time I do it or something. When we have money to donate. But this is just something I noticed that is just true of a lot of mystery stories. Is like the convenience and contrivances of the plot. I think can be forgiven if we get the information earlier so
Yep.
that it feels organic. Because like I was noticing Fran, the other maid,
Mm-hmm.
housekeeper, I think is her official job. She says her like cousin works in a medical examiner's office, and that ends up like tying in later on with like
Yeah.
that's how they got. I think it was like that's how they got the tox report
Yeah.
from the hospital. And if that had just come up in the end, it would have felt like, oh, come on. Like,
Right.
that's so convenient. But because it's set up earlier when she's doing that, like, little panic rant to Marta, she's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, my cousin works at this, and she talks about all these things that happen. And it's, like, slipped in really subtly. So, like, it is convenient,
Mm-hmm.
but it just doesn't feel convenient. So I think that's a technique that I think is often used to good effect. And when
Yeah,
it's not
I do that.
used, it feels wrong.
Right. It feels like a Deus Ex, something like that. I do that often in my writing. It's normally just a line like that, like a quote unquote throwaway line, but it's like to set something up that I know is going to come down the line, and I'm not going to know how exactly it gets there, so I'm just going to have somebody say this line that sets up this plot point later on.
And it's always interesting how it gets buried. Like a technique I saw like called out recently is burying a detail in a list. It was
Yeah.
in reference to the Harry Potter books, the way that like a lot of the details that end up being used in a reveal at the end will be put in like this summarized list. where
Mm-hmm.
it's like just stuff that's like happening day to day. It'll be like the ghosts were doing all this stuff. Ginny Weasley was over here doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Draco was mouthing off about his father all the time,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And one of those details ends up being important at the end, but it's like buried so that you have no idea that it has significance at the time because
Right.
four of the five other things aren't significant. They're
Right.
just what they are at face value.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Long and short of it, this is like a freaking masterpiece of a mystery. And I don't know that I want to write a movie like this, but if I do, like, this is the gold standard, I think.
Mm-hmm. Have you written a mystery before?
I've never written anything I would classify genre wise as a mystery,
Mm-hmm.
but I have written stuff that has, like, reveals, I guess, or has, like, investigative elements.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, and I think in any case, like, mystery writing is good to study, I think, as a writer.
I took a
What
class.
Oh, you took a class on. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I think you mentioned that at some
Yeah.
point.
I did
I
we had like two main projects for that class, and you could like do a whole bunch of do a bunch of stuff, mysteries, and I ended up just writing two stories. I think the professor liked my first one more than my second, because the second was like a train mystery. Using throughout all like most of my writing college courses, I was throwing in my descended characters wherever I could
hmm,
because they're already established. So I would just like maybe tweak their personalities and like remove the superpowers, but their names were the same and their personalities were pretty similar. So I didn't have to create characters from the ground up because that takes a crap ton of work. I ended up doing a train mystery for the second half, but the first one was like it was a mystery with an interrogation mystery with like superheroes and them using their powers and stuff, and then the killer is revealed at the end, and it was really fun to write. It's something different. I don't normally write like straight up mystery like that.
I think also, like, just to kind of wrap this up, like what this story does, and we'll get into like some of the thematic stuff that this movie does later, but I like that it does use its genre to help elevate the theme, because the frustration I have, or not frustration, but I guess annoyance that I have with other mystery stories is that a lot of times it's like, okay, we discovered who the killer was. I couldn't predict it, and like I'm surprised, but I also am like, all right, big deal.
Mm-hmm.
All it was giving me was like an hour and a half of who done it, and now we know
Right.
who done it, and that's kind of it.
Why I like Clue is because it like entertains you along the way.
Right. Yeah, Clue is definitely an exception to that. The Sherlock Holmes stories, I feel like, are kind of like that, but the Sherlock, the TV show, is definitely like there's so much more happening that I don't care too much about the mystery of it. But the mystery is like still fun a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times. And that's like those are again gold standard. Actually, I lied because I did try writing a mystery with the Sherlock episode that I did, I
Oh,
guess.
right. You mentioned that.
I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess because that's sort of a different kind of mystery, like a different part of the genre than like a Knives Out, Clue
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. This does an amazing job of subverting a mystery, and we'll get into it. I'm wondering if that's going to affect the sequels.
Mm-hmm.
But I know, just like very last thing with this, I know that the moment that like my clearest memory of the theater is like just this feeling. I don't remember exactly when it happened. It was probably like 30 to 60 minutes into the movie. I think it was at some point during when we found out, like the flashback with Marta, when we found out how she actually did it, I guess. I was just like sitting in the theater being like, I have no idea where this is going, and I am so here for it. Like, I just
Right.
feel like I'm in such good hands with this story.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like just an amazing feeling to have. I wish I could still have that when Actually, I do still get it when I rewatch it, because I remember like between the first and second time, I was kind of thinking like, is this gonna hold up? Am I still gonna like it as much? And then I rewatched it, and I was like, all these details are fitting together. Like, wow, this is impressive. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he did such a good job.
Do you think you, as an audience member, need to understand the mystery genre in order to enjoy this movie?
That is a good question, because it is like from the word go, it's playing into like it's giving us really strong like Agatha Christie. I think Lakeith Stanfield says this guy practically lives on a clue board.
Right.
Like it's playing really hard into like the feel of that genre,
Mm-hmm.
like visually.
Also, the guy that dies is a mystery writer.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Like it's putting us in that headspace very deliberately.
The cow and the shotgun? How did you come up with that?
I love that they have that guy as just like the biggest fan.
Yeah.
Like at the end when he's shushing Lakeith Stanfield,
Yeah.
Lakeith Stanfield's like, "Come on!" He's like, "No, no, no. Let's see what he's doing." I think that's fun. Yeah, I don't know, cause like I feel like you could just engage, like, to take it to like the extreme of what your question is, like, what if this is the first mystery movie you've ever seen?
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of it would still hit,
Okay.
but I wonder, yeah, maybe it wouldn't be as enjoyable if you weren't
Mm-hmm.
as like familiar with those tropes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you would need to have an idea of what mysteries were, how they're normally structured in order to enjoy this movie better. I'm not gonna say you wouldn't enjoy it if you've never seen a mystery before. It's still a
Mm-hmm.
good movie. I think in order to appreciate it to its fullest, let's say that, you would need to understand the mystery genre a little better.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if that's true of all like subversive genre movies because there's a lot of. I feel like I've seen a
Mm.
couple movies and I'm not thinking of exact ones. Maybe No Country for Old Men is one where it's kind of like the appeal of it is that it's playing into like these genre tropes and then no, you know what one is? Cabin in the Woods. That's one
Ah,
where like because I am not somebody who has seen a whole lot of those like contained slasher horror movies where
mm-hmm.
a bunch of teenagers go to a cabin in the woods and like get killed off for doing drugs and having sex and whatever. Like that whole genre of movies. I haven't seen a whole lot of those and
Mm-hmm.
it's playing like I think the whole appeal of that movie is it's messing with those tropes. So I as a person who hasn't seen those like I'm vaguely aware of those tropes
Mm-hmm.
but since I haven't seen them, it's not hitting for me, and I didn't really enjoy that movie.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't know if this is like the same thing. Like I feel like you could still enjoy Knives Out without that,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, it's still a good mystery.
Right. I think the difference with this and Cabin in the Woods is Cabin in the Woods was like the whole subversion and the tropes were part of the plot in that movie. Like
Mm-hmm.
Sigourney Weaver at the end was like, you're supposed to be a virgin, you're supposed to be the last girl.
Oh
And that's
yeah, and
like
they're
a
kind of like,
common,
and then she goes,
yeah,
"I'm not a virgin," and they're like, "Yeah, we work with what we got."
right.
Like they're kind of messing with it.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, the group splitting up and all this they had gas to convince dude to split up the group. Yeah, I think that's because it was so heavily like buried into the plot in that movie, whereas Knives Out, I don't think it was there as much. It's just I think it can still be a mystery on its own, even though you kind of they reveal who the killer is. It's just when they revealed the killer, it was moved up about an hour or an hour and a half earlier.
I do feel like though if this is your first mystery movie and you watch this and then you go watch another one, it's gonna worsen other mystery movies.
Yes,
For you, I
for
think.
sure.
I think that could
For
be an
sure.
effect.
Mm-hmm.
I think it does decrease your enjoyment of this on its own if you haven't seen anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how many people that's the case for. Like maybe if you're like 12 watching this, that might be the case.
So if you watch this and then cleanse your palate with Clue, and then watch other mysteries, you might be good.
I don't know though because Clue is kind of atypical for mystery stories too.
But it's
You know what I think would be an interesting
damn
comparison?
hilarious.
Yeah, well, Clue's just awesome on so many levels. But I think an interesting comparison with this that I was sort of thinking of. Do you remember Bad Times at the El Royale? It came out like 2 years ago,
Oh yeah, I
maybe
saw
closer
that.
to three now. Did you see it?
No, I don't think I did. What was that?
I
A Bond?
saw it.
No. What is it?
No, it's a
I was thinking
it,
Casino
it's
Royale.
yeah,
Fudge.
that's a much better movie, which we will cover someday at some point. Whenever No Time to Die comes out, we're gonna do it before that.
Okay.
Bad Times at the El Royale though is like this it's another one of those like ensemble murder mystery kind of things at like a hotel in
Mm-hmm.
I forget exactly what the era was. It was like a maybe the 50s. It had Chris Hemsworth and Dakota Johnson and Cynthia Erivo in it. I think there were some others, but I'm forgetting them now. But I remember seeing that, and that was just one of those mysteries where it was like it was trying to kind of be what Knives Out eventually was, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But it just like it was just kind of not doing it hard enough and like not really working as hard. And I'm not trying to throw too much shade at it, but it
Mm-hmm.
was like trying to revive the genre in the
Oh,
same
okay.
way, I think, and it just didn't do it.
Got it.
And I don't really remember that movie well enough because and like that's I think because it was kind of forgettable. Like I don't remember it well enough to make comparisons, but I think it's kind of a testament to how good Knives Out is that like we basically had the same movie 1 year earlier. At least in terms of marketing, it kind of looked like the same thing, and one got a ton of attention, and one I think a lot of people probably forgot about or never even heard of. Next topic is Marta as a protagonist. Her lie puking quirk. Let's start with that.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to trust her and trust that?
Not long. As soon as
Okay.
she did that, like maybe actually the second time she did that, or almost did it, or whenever she was outside, and both Elliot and Blanc were there questioning her, and it was like the second time she was gonna puke after lying or not lying, whatever. My brother, who is, I think he's a psychology major, he said something about that being a self-induced, like, yeah, I don't know what word he used for it, but it was a big word, and I was like, well, that makes sense. It's like a self-induced traumatic response, something or other, and I was like, okay, so she does that herself because of something that happened with lying when she was younger, probably, and now she
Hmm.
pukes because of it. So we like that physical response. There's no way you can really. There's no way around that if she lies. So I kind of like trusted her off the bat because of that and because of what he
Hmm.
said. And then like I don't think from that point on, I don't think there was a point where I ever like doubted her because everything she did just seemed genuine.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I think I like half trusted it because I was like, okay, that's like pretty much, and especially with the flashback that we saw where it seems like she actually killed Harlan, I was like, I don't see a whole lot to doubt here. The only thing that was giving me pause was the fact that this is a mystery. I'm expecting the rug to be pulled out. Maybe this is
Mm-hmm.
it. I'm actually glad that it doesn't, but I was
Mm-hmm.
sort of like gearing up for that the first time. I think the thing that made me kind of doubt it is the fact that we don't actually see any physical puke until she does it onto Chris Evans at the end,
Mm-hmm.
like projectile vomits onto his face. Which
Mm-hmm.
one gross, but two I was like, okay, it's real. Because we all the other ones she's like throwing up into something.
Well,
Um,
there was that. There's been a few times where like, well, we see it because there's a camera there, but like nobody was watching her and she did it.
yeah,
Like where she ran to the bathroom and then waited a second, then ducked down and put her face in the toilet, and then once in the car with LeBlanc when, not LeBlanc. Is it LeBlanc or just Blanc?
Blanc. It's just Blanc.
Okay. Where she pukes into the cup before he got into the car, like she did it when she wasn't expecting anybody to see that. So like, well, that was also towards like the end of the movie. Like, why would she go out of her way to do that if nobody was watching her?
Yeah, and I think to that point also, like, I think if they kept that consistency and then in the end it was like, haha, I've been faking this all along, that's actually kind of cheating us as the audience
Right.
because then she's doing it performatively for us.
Mm-hmm.
So that would have actually cheapened it.
Unless she's just actually insane.
Yeah, and enjoys throwing up for some reason. It's also interesting. I really love how it becomes an asset and an obstacle at different
Mm-hmm.
points. Because, like, at first you're like, oh, she's just a lie detector in a lot of ways.
Right.
But then when it's flipped around and she's being convicted or like potentially being convicted of Harlan's murder, she's like, I can't lie to them. What do I do? Like, that's a really interesting way to do it. I appreciate that she doesn't end up telling the truth the whole time. She does have to lie. And it's just increasingly difficult. I thought it was used well, even though at first I was a little bit like, that's a little convenient that Rian Johnson's just giving himself a lie detector in this movie. But he definitely like didn't make it easier on himself doing that.
Right.
For the way it's incorporated. Another big thing with Marta, I like the couple of scenes that we get establishing her relationship with Harlan, that like they have a very like equal connection and friendship, and it doesn't feel like, she is serving him, but they don't come off as like employer employee. They come off as like they have a real friendship there.
Right. Even though he's paying her.
Right, he's paying her. But they kind of establish like their history with it, where she's like, yeah, I started coming in like a couple days a week just to take care of him, and then I just stuck around
because you need a different.
But we also see that it's not just like what the family suspects, where it's like she's like manipulating him or whatever.
Boinking.
Yeah, God, that was keeping the PG-13 in a very fun way there. And I forget who it is. Somebody else is like, excuse me. But yeah, it's like it robs that possibility in a good way, where it's like really speaking to, she is not doing this out of any ulterior motive. It's like they actually care about each other. And like we can feel that they're like, especially that Go game in the flashback, they just feel really comfortable with each other.
And then she asks him if he wants to do drugs.
Yeah,
it's funny, but then it gets sad because, well, he was supposed to die of the drugs, but he doesn't.
And in that whole scene, we feel like they really have a connection that's not just like, oh crap, I'm getting fired. It's like, no, I'm losing my best friend right now.
Also, that guy really looks like Patrick Stewart. No shade to the actor, but I just thought of
Christopher Plummer.
Discount Patrick Stewart the whole time.
I would push against that.
I've never seen him in anything else. I don't. All I heard and thought of when I saw his face was Patrick Stewart. I know it was a completely different guy, but I was like,
yeah,
this could be Patrick Stewart too.
A fun little bit of trivia with him, Christopher Plummer's the actor. I think I saw like a meme of this shortly after Knives Out was released, but in 2011 we had The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, where Christopher Plummer's character says to Daniel Craig's character in that movie, you're going to be investigating like the most vile people you've ever met, my family, which is the exact plot of this movie, where Daniel Craig investigates Christopher Plummer's terrible family.
Oof.
Which conversely, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo might be my favorite Daniel Craig performance. He's so good in that.
Isn't that a whole series? The girl who burned herself?
The books are a series. The movies, they have a Swedish version that they made a trilogy of. David Fincher directed The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo American version with Daniel Craig and Rooney Mara, and it didn't make enough money. They came out with a sequel like 2 years ago, but none of them were attached. Like, I think they even got a new, I think it's Claire Foy plays Lisbeth Salander instead of Rooney Mara. So I don't even know if they count that as like a sequel to the Fincher version. But like,
never known what that series is about.
I've only ever seen the David Fincher movie. I think my brother's read the whole series, or at least the first book. And I think he's seen the Swedish versions.
The title gives away nothing about the series, so I've never known. Like, what is Daniel Craig's a detective in that?
I think he's actually a reporter, but he kind of plays the role of a detective.
It's like naming a movie The Boy with the Incredibly Blue Eyes. What does that tell me about the movie? It could be a freaking slasher horror film, and I wouldn't know until I saw it or heard about it.
The Shawshank Redemption. Okay.
Well,
he's gonna go redeem a coupon. Goodwill Hunting, going around to thrift shops.
Oh man, Evan.
Hey, it's gonna be a third time. Rule of threes.
Uh,
We don't know when though. Oh.
God damn it. Wait, where were we?
Yeah,
Allies. Yeah.
yeah. That's another thing another thing I like with her is how it robs her of allies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if she's ever like totally without allies. No, there's a couple points in this movie I think where she is completely without allies, but she kind of like gets some and loses them along the way. Where like Harlan's an ally at first, but then he dies, and then Benoit Blanc is kind of an ally for a little bit, maybe at certain points because he's like kind of on her side, but also as the investigator and her as
He
the
can't. Yeah.
yeah
When she's hiding clues, mainly is what I'm thinking of. She
yeah.
has to do that on her own without
Mm-hmm.
notifying anybody because nobody can know she killed dude. So.
Right. But then later, when she confesses to Chris Evans or
Right.
Ransom, he kind of becomes an ally. But like we were talking about earlier, like he immediately is like, I'm not just your ally. Like I've got some stuff in it for me. And of course, the whole time he's actually trying to set her up.
Right.
So he's never really an ally. He just comes off as one for certain points.
And then he
Um,
just straight up betrays her by telling
yeah.
everything.
But I like that. I think that's a good construction, getting us on her side. And not just that she's just like completely on her own the whole time, that like it gives and it takes away at different points. A thing I wanted to talk about with her is how she is a flat arc protagonist. So this is a term that I've only learned in like the past year or so. A flat arc character is somebody who doesn't change, but they change the world around them. So like some other examples are V from V for Vendetta, Captain America, Jesus, Andy Dufresne from Shawshank Redemption are all kind of flat art characters. We talked about this a little bit when we did the Chocolate Factory episodes with Charlie Bucket,
Yes.
because like it's a similar thing where that story is all about he is like just a good kid and he gets rewarded at the end. Kind of the same thing with Marta here. The big difference is she's active, which I think just makes her so much better, and she's like presented with choices that challenge her for like, she could stray from being a good person, however like the movie defines that, but she chooses not to. So
Mm-hmm.
like it's a much more active thing. Do you think she is compelling as a protagonist? Do you think she's more compelling than other flat arc protagonists?
Yes. I think solely based on the fact that she's making decisions to either like do things like hide clues or reveal herself as the murderer, choosing to do that. Having a character make choices, I feel, will always be more interesting than just letting things happen to them.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, in that way, she's way more compelling.
Mm-hmm.
I think Captain America, he started to have a bit more agency. I think that's the right word. Once he decided important things like helping his friend in Civil War, even though it went against like the government and all this stuff people he had been working for, and he ended up being on the lam and on the run because he wanted to help his friend. That's a pretty important decision to make, and that's what ended up causing the Civil War in the first place. So having your flat art character still making decisions, even though they're not, their morality, their core isn't changing, is always going to be more compelling than just, hey, Charlie, come to this factory with these other 5 kids. They're bad. Oh no, they're gone, possibly dead. You win.
Yeah, because like we talked about in that episode, like he never has a moment. I mean, depending on the version, he doesn't really have a moment where he is truly faced with like a choice to step out of line or not. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
talked about the fizzy lifting drinks thing, which is kind of its own conversation in that
Right.
triad. I think if you're looking at the other two versions, he's never challenged, and that's I think we decided that makes him a less compelling protagonist. In
Right.
terms of Captain America, I agree with what you're saying there that like yeah, it's more interesting that he makes that decision and it has true consequences. I think what for me makes Marta more compelling than him is that she is making active choices throughout, whereas I should probably rewatch Civil War to check this, but it felt to me like he makes one decision in that movie
Oh no,
and then
you're right.
stands by it the whole time. I feel like it's challenged once and then never really challenged further.
Right.
Whereas Marta, I feel like is faced with decisions consistently throughout this where like the pressure on her is increased at each point and
Mm-hmm.
eventually she's like I am going to change my tactic here. I am going to come clean to the family and stop doing this, which she ends up not, but it is her decision to do that in like, given the pressure that's on her. Captain America in Civil War, I don't think he ever considers like not standing by Bucky at any point.
Yeah. No, you're right. And there was that whole line that was said like twice where it was like sometimes you just have to stand your ground and tell them no, you move. And
Mm-hmm.
that was from that point on he was like, well, I'm not going to move, but I'm making the decision to not move. You
Right.
guys move.
Yeah, and I won't get into. I have hot takes on Civil War, but I won't get into them now. No, that's for another time. But in terms of other flat art characters, like the book that I learned this from is Creating Character Arcs by K.M. Weiland, and I think she uses Winter Soldier as an example. Another one she uses is Batman Begins as like kind of a not subversion of the flat art protagonist, but like giving the audience a flat art protagonist that is not just like this consistently good guy, like because Bruce Wayne in that movie is like definitely not okay, and we'll talk about the Dark Knight trilogy someday, but she kind of in that book is showing like a flat arc protagonist doesn't necessarily mean they're just this pillar of virtue the
Mm-hmm.
entire time. And I think an example I enjoy more with that is V from V for Vendetta, where you may not, as an individual audience member, necessarily agree with everything he's doing and the way he's doing it, but he is standing by his beliefs. And to a certain extent, the movie is maybe not completely endorsing and supporting his decisions, but it is posturing that like he is sort of in the right and his like devotion to these beliefs is good at some level. And I think in terms of Knives Out, where that comes in is like I don't think Marta is a morally ambiguous person. Like I think very much like Benoit Blanc says it several times that she's a very good person. Like she is very much meant to. I know I hate that accent, but I had to pull it out.
There were so many times my brother and I were just copying whatever he
Twisting
was
the
saying.
knife into each other.
A donut.
A
There's a
donut.
hole in the
A
middle
hole
of
inside of the donut hole.
every time he said Holland, my brother and I would just repeat him like, oh my god. It
Marta went
was
upstairs to see Harlan
it
the
was
night of
just
the party. It's bad, but it is fun to imitate. I do
uh
like that. I call it the. I like to make a distinction between Southern accents where one points with their fingers and one fights in the wah. This is the fight in the wah.
in
Southern
the what?
accent fights in the wah as opposed to the war. Going
Oh,
fighting
in
in
the
the wah.
wall. Yeah.
Going. I was in the wah in 42.
I don't
Yeah, the fact that Marta is like this, like she is very much shown as a good person by the end. Throughout the movie, she's doing things that feel very morally ambiguous. She is lying, she's covering her tracks. Like she
mm-hmm.
doesn't feel like saintly or noble or
She
anything.
would have just came out and said it. Hey, I did it.
Right.
That would have been the
Right.
movie over.
What I like though is that I don't think the movie ever is telling us that she should do that because
Right.
I don't think it is the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And this ties into a question that I had a little bit. Like, what do you think she does with the money at the end? Do you think she gives it back? Or do you think she keeps it, like, does something else? Because we don't really know.
I think she keeps the money. As an audience member, I would want her to keep the money. F that
Mhm.
family.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was, and I'm not quite sure. Like, I like that it's ambiguous. I think the first time I saw it, I think first two times I saw it, I was like, yeah, she just keeps it. And for some reason, the question never really entered my head. But now I'm realizing like they really don't tell us. And I think the last line of the movie is Daniel Craig, like her asking him, "What do you think I should do?" And he
Hmm.
just kind of says, "I think you'll do the right thing." But we don't actually find out what she does.
I think that "sit my house, my rules" thing on the mug
My
was
coffee.
plenty. Yeah, plenty of like. I just assume she gonna keep everything, and I think she should.
I wonder if she's going to, and I really hope that the sequels do not answer this question. I
Yeah,
would much prefer that they keep this ambiguous. But I would be interested to see if maybe she gives some money to some people because she does promise Meg at the one point, "I am going to pay for your tuition." Is she going to keep that promise?
yeah. But Meg also was like, did she find out Meg was like doing that because the family told her to?
I don't believe she does,
Mm.
but at the same time, maybe it would come up somehow because I don't think the Thrombies are giving up at the end of
Nope.
this movie. Like
Nope.
they've lost everything, but they are not done. Like some of them, I think, are going to go off and try to make their own way, but some of them definitely are going to take her to court on this.
I love how many times. I think she said it to both Ransom. I know she definitely said it to Michael Shannon's character. That was another actor I forgot to
Mm-hmm.
mention that I realized on the posters because of
Man of
G-
Steel.
General Zod, yes. Whenever she mentioned, oh, so you're saying if I were to give you the money, you would help me with your assets and lawyers in order to help my mom stay in the country. Oh, well, it's a good thing I have your assets and money.
So I guess I will find the right lawyers. Yeah, that's a
Uh,
great dialogue scene. I also love Michael Shannon's like the way he gives up at a couple points. Like in that scene, he's just kind of like, "Oh, all
yeah.
right, I guess." And then my favorite moment with him is in the will reading when they first find out. He stands up and just kind of goes, no,
Yeah.
no." Like, it's like it's so perfect.
Oh, another
Yeah.
one was when Chris Evans, and this is a swearing warning for this point right here, where he was like, you know what? You can all eat shit. You eat shit, you eat shit, you definitely eat shit. And then they're all screaming at him by the end, and then you just hear Michael Shannon at the end of it saying, I am not eating one iota of shit.
Yeah. Yeah, he's surprising because
Uh,
like he comes off as such a serious actor. Like it's
right,
surprising how funny he is in this movie.
right.
Let's get into talking about some of the minor characters like the Thrombies because I mean one we already have and two like I think performance wise like everyone in this movie, maybe with the exception of Daniel Craig, is just so on point. Like
Yeah.
if you could give an Oscar for ensemble, and I think there's other award systems that give awards for ensembles, like wow, this
Yeah.
ensemble crushes it. Every single character. Jamie Lee Curtis as Linda, I think is
Oh, she
great.
was
She's
fantastic.
maybe my favorite of the
She
Thrombies.
might be.
Like in
Yeah.
terms of like just her performance and
Mm-hmm.
like what I love about her character is like we get such a range of emotion from her in
Mm-hmm.
so few scenes. Like there's a couple moments where we actually like get a second where she's truly grieving her dad.
Mm-hmm.
And like the movie never takes away from that. Like she truly is grieving. But then we also get scenes where she's turning on Marta in like maybe the worst way out of any of the family. Like she's immediately like blaming her and like, yeah,
Boinking.
were you boinking my father? Like
Yep.
all of that. And I think if any actor in this should have gotten an Oscar, it's Ana de Armas. Jamie Lee Curtis is close second though.
Mm.
She's just too small of a role, I think.
It was strange for me seeing Tony Collette like doing this
Mm-hmm.
like stereotypical Valley white girl type of thing, and because I haven't actually seen her in I don't think any movie, but I've
She's in The
seen
Sixth Sense. I think that's maybe the only thing I've seen her in. I saw half of Hereditary, which she's in. Apparently, she's really good in that.
yeah
I
I've
don't think I got to
seen
those parts.
I've seen like YouTube breakdowns on movies she's been in, like The Babadook and Hereditary, and I'm used to seeing her like screaming or really stressed
Flustered.
out or
Yeah, even The
yeah
Sixth Sense, her whole role is just like, ooh, like flustered,
Mm-hmm.
like single mom kind of deal.
Right. And then seeing her in this calm, like sort of dumbed down role in comparison, it was like,
Hmm.
well, this is different.
She nails it though.
Still, yeah, definitely. There was one family member that didn't even really get shine. I'm gonna look at her right
Is
now.
it maybe?
Donna Thromby.
Oh, I think that's Walt's wife. She's blonde. I think like
Yes.
Ricky Lindholm is the actress.
Yeah.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too because like she truly is the one. Like I think she maybe is the one family member who doesn't show up on the poster.
Mm-hmm.
Because even like Tony Collette, Joni is the character. She's not a Thromby by blood. She's a Thromby by marriage, and the son that she was
The
married to apparently is dead. It took me a couple of viewings to actually figure out what everyone's relationship was.
right.
Because then Don Johnson is also he marries into the family, but so we have two in-laws who are prominently featured, and then you're
Mm-hmm.
right, Donna isn't really. So that is interesting. The character that kept expecting to get more from was Jaden Martell, the alt-right troll.
Oh,
What I
yeah.
was thinking the first time I saw it, when Marta gets the blackmail letter, like I know what you did and all that, and the like come to this place this time, I was like, that for sure is going to be the Nazi kid
Right.
because we haven't seen very much of him yet. So like if we're doing the ensemble piece thing, he's kind of the one member of the ensemble that hasn't had much to do, and that is very much like alt-right troll kind of thing to do.
Right.
I mean, of course I was wrong, but I was expecting that.
I think I guessed somebody when that letter was written, but I don't remember who I guessed at the time. It might have been him, or it might have been. It was probably Meg. Was my guess.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I think it's
mhm.
really interesting too, like the way that all of the family members have ugly sides that come out, and some of them, like it's a good spectrum of some of them are truly uglier than others, but all of them do come out. Like even Meg, I think the first time I saw it, I was kind of like, Meg is like the only one that gets redeemed. But second and third viewing, I was kind of like, no, she like because there's that scene where she calls Marta
Right.
and says like, oh, "What are you going to do with the money?" And then we
I
get the
think you should
reveal
give
that
it back.
like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And at first I was like, "Oh, come on!" Like I thought you were like gonna be helpful. And then we see the family is. I got from that shot. I don't think it's textually in there. I assumed that she was like being pressured by the family to do that. I don't know if that's the case or if she just called and they all happened to be listening in by the end of the conversation.
Mm.
But in either case, like the first time I saw it, I kind of like forgave her after that shot.
No, I didn't. I thought it was both. I thought she was being pressured, but also she believed that like the money should be theirs.
Hmm. I think it's very possible because we don't really get textual proofs, so it's kind of like how I think it's up to however you interpret her motivations. But no
Mm-hmm.
matter what, like even in the best reading of that scene, she's still caving to the family's pressure. She could have said no.
Mm-hmm.
To some degree she is guilty, and you can
Right.
I guess it's kind of up to interpretation how guilty you think she is, but her actions speak for themselves.
As an audience member, the first thing you see her do is like correct the cop in
Mhm.
calling Marta the help, so you think she's going to be on her side, and then she's smoking with Marta and Fran, and they think they're cool, but that oof.
Yeah, and she kind of comes like you definitely are meant to read her as like the woke member of the family, quote unquote,
Right.
because it seems like we kind of get implications that this family is relatively divided politically. They make like a real light allusion to Trump at the
Yeah.
one point, which like I think if you watch it 20 years from now, like somebody born today might not catch that
Mm-hmm.
reference, but right now you can't not see it if you live in America.
And immigrants and taking
Yeah.
jobs and yeah.
Let's go into this topic, putting characters under pressure, because it kind of ties in with what we were talking about just now. Like a technique that I've heard is good to use, or like something to keep in mind, is that characters like reveal themselves the most when they're under the greatest pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this movie is a really good testament to that, both with how Marta acts and especially with how the Thrombies act. mostly in the will reading scene. Like in that moment, that is probably like when the pressure climaxes for everyone, where it's like the biggest, most shocking event for them. And we see all of their like true selves come out. Marta doesn't really make a decision right then,
Right.
but she's, not causing any conflict. She's trying to like figure out what to do. She's just flustered. But then everyone else, it's like we see some ugly sides come out in seconds right there. Like
Right.
Jacob throws a racial slur at her. Joni's kind of like not being aggressive, but definitely trying to manipulate her.
Mm-hmm.
Linda's automatically accusing Marta of all sorts of things. Walt, we get that scene where he, it's maybe a day later, but he's going in and strong arming her too, but kind of like acting more charitable about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a really good way of revealing character. And then Chris Evans, of course, Ransom, his pressure is not turned up in that moment, but
It's turned up everywhere else because
it's turned up everywhere else. Yes.
sets a building on fire and kills somebody, and yeah.
Yeah, when the heat is turned on,
When the
that's
knives
when we
are
see
out.
when the knives come out. I just think this is like such a testament to that, and also in terms of the family dynamics too, because in their like natural state, like we see before the will reading, and even in a couple of other scenes, this family doesn't get along very well a lot of times.
Yes.
But then when their fortune's being threatened, they band together, not because they love each other. And like, because there's some movies where I think it'll be like, oh, we're like in conflict, but then this thing happens and it's like, no, at the end of the day, we do love each other. Not with this family.
Nope.
Like, they're doing it because they just want their share.
And they're each going about their. Remember, they were each kind of attacking Marta in their own ways, even though it was all at the same time when they learned about the inheritance. So
Yeah.
I said, strangely, because this is along the lines of what you said, strangely, the Thrombey's selfishness finds them companionship among the other family members, except for Ransom, of course. So
I would say, well, yeah, I guess except for Ransom. Because he actively, of course, F my family, goes out of his way to, like,
actually
not
break
join
the
up
law.
with them. Yeah.
Yeah, that too.
I really like the way it does that. And it also, I think, helps to make the characters memorable. Because if they all did the same thing right then they stop being separate characters and start being a unit.
Right.
And
The Thrombeys, not their by their first names. They're
Yeah.
all just Mm-hmm.
well, it's also like, and this is another like thing you hear about character design that I hope to do better with. The character revealing thing isn't necessarily what the character does, it's the way they do it, because they're all doing the same thing in that moment. They're like, they all have the same goal. They're all trying to get their money back from Marta, but all of them use different tactics, I guess.
Right.
Some of them are using intimidation, some of them are trying to like use reason, bargaining, all these different things, guilt tripping, all this stuff. Yeah, because some of them are like, oh, we like let you into our home, like you owe us. Like the other interesting thing is like the way that they treat Marta before and after. This was an interesting I noticed too. I had to go check it, but actually both Walt and Linda, Michael Shannon and Jamie Lee Curtis, both of them say to Marta, I think almost word for word, it's the same thing. I thought you should have been at the funeral. I was outvoted. And at first I just I forgot that both of them said it. I think at separate times I remembered one or the other. And then I was like, hold up. If they both said that, that's 2 votes against. Maybe are we meant to read that as they're lying right there? Like maybe they did vote against it and they're just saying that. Because, maybe they're kind of suggesting that most of the family is against it. So, but we don't hear about anyone who said they voted for her to not be there.
Right.
So, I don't know. Maybe, I don't think there's a factual answer to that. It was just interesting that both of them say that. With other things, too, like, we see Linda being nice to Marta in 1 or 2 moments. And then, like, right before the will reading, I think, or pretty early scene, they're like, we're going to take care of you after this.
Right.
And then as soon as they find out that she's already taken care of, they're like, nah, screw that.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
You take care
all
of us.
mm-hmm. And all of their conversations, like, Meg is the only one who brings up at all, like, maybe Marta should just get the money. Everyone else is not saying, like, should she get any of it? All of them are focused on how do we get it back.
Right.
And then they're all just like, we should give, yes, she has to give it up. That's the only solution. Let's go. That's our plan now. So that was like tied in with kind of the last topic before we get to talking about the sequel. The commentary this movie has on inherited wealth. I like what it does. I think you could sort of miss it the first time, but it's definitely layered in there. Like, all of these family members feel, or most of them at least, feel entitled to Harlan's fortune. All of them are kind of relying on it, and yet they also use this language of like, I am self-made. I think the phrase from the ground up comes up like 5 times at least from different characters. It's this like contradiction and this kind of hypocrisy within the family of like, I am self-made, but they're also like riding off of these $1 million plus loans from Harlan. I don't know if there's like an exact stance that he's taking. He's just maybe like pointing out the irony of it.
Yes.
Yeah, I kind of talked about this earlier, but have you seen Parasite?
I have not.
Yeah, I'm not going to spoil it with this, but like Parasite is very explicitly about class differences, and they very explicitly make the point in that movie that it's easy to be nice and generous when you're rich and you don't think you have anything to lose. And I felt like that kind of plays through this as well, where like they're fine giving stuff to Marta and being generous with her when they think they're set. And as soon as they're not, all bets are off. They don't want to help her. So it's just, I think it's really well observed at the very least. Like, he's not necessarily making a big statement on it, but he's putting a mirror up to it effectively. So, do you have anything else about either of those two topics with the Thrombies at all?
Nope.
So, last thing to talk about, sequels. What do you want from the sequel?
I don't know. Because I expected this to be an ensemble thing, I don't know if I should, like, if I really want that from the sequels, because this is so different from what I was expecting. And I feel like if they go the ensemble route for the sequels, I feel like that would just, like, bog down what this did. I don't really know. I want a murder. Because murder mystery. But
You don't think it would be compelling with another type of crime?
not really. Like, thief, who stole the cookie from the... No, I'm not. Nah. Because death is way more... It's like the highest stake.
Yeah.
One of the highest stakes that could be, aside from, like, eternal punishment. Nah. Maybe, like, only Lakeith Stanfield is, like, the returning detective. I've already looked at your notes and I know who's returning, but, like...
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't-
So it sounds like Benoit Blanc, just for the audience. It sounds like he's the only character they're bringing back, which I'm okay with, even though, like I said, he might be my least favorite part of this movie.
Is it the accent?
I mean, I'd rather just see Daniel Craig be British or do, because I've seen him do a southern accent. Like Logan Lucky, he does it different. He does a point with his fingers southern accent, and he's really good with it. And I was just this past weekend watching Road to Perdition, where he does like a more like standard like non-regional American accent, and he's pretty good at it as a British guy. And like, but I just prefer his British accent. That's the Daniel Craig I like. But they've already started casting a lot of people for it. The names I've seen: Dave Bautista, Kate Hudson, Leslie Odom Jr., Catherine Hahn, Ed Norton, and Janelle Monáe. And I think I'm gonna pull this up. I think I just saw somebody else got added today. Here we go. Jessica Henwick says she's apparently in Game of Thrones, Star Wars, and Iron Fist.
Wait, is she Asian?
Yeah, looks like it.
Yes. Wait, Knives Out 2.
It was just announced today. She might not like be on the cast list just yet.
Jessica Henwick. I think she was. Oh God, I don't remember the character's name. Yeah, that's her. It was with a C. Well,
In Star Wars?
no, Iron Fist. I saw her in Iron. That's the only thing I know.
I
her
haven't
from.
seen Iron Fist.
You
I don't remember
need-
who
you
she
don't
was
need
in
to.
Game of Thrones.
She was Mrs. Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Colleen.
Yeah,
Colleen Wing. That's who she was in Iron Fist. No, it started with the C. Oh, she was in Underwater. Oh no.
Oh wait, is that the Kristen Stewart movie where they're at in like
We're going
Antarctica or something?
Underwater. He said the thing.
Title drop.
He said the. Oh, Catherine. That's why I recognize the name. She's Agatha.
Yes, I've been seeing that all over the place.
I
I have yet to watch WandaVision. I probably won't if I can help it, but I know who it was all along.
It was, yes.
So in terms of the sequel, Rian Johnson apparently has said, this is from the IMDb trivia page for Knives Out 2. He said it's best not to think of the film as Knives Out 2, but rather the continuing adventures of Benoit Blanc.
That's not a good character to do this for, though.
I kind of agree, but I don't know, because Rian Johnson did such a good job with this. Also, a sequel to a mystery sounds iffy. But
Yes.
he's saying, it's maybe not really going to be a sequel. It's
You ain't never heard
just
of Clue
be...
2, Evan?
Well, I mean, I guess sign me up. I wouldn't mind a remake of Clue, but
Yes.
I don't think it'll match the original. But I wouldn't mind
never.
seeing him try. We got to do Clue someday. When we do, I want to recast Clue for the modern age.
Oh, that'd be
who you
fun.
would put in it.
Write that down.
I don't need to write it down. I've been thinking of it since I first saw Clue, as a 14-year-old.
Damn. Okay.
I wrote a list back in I think it was 2015 or 2014 of people, but I probably am not going to stand by that list.
Every character is going to be, for me, is going to be recast as Daniel Craig's Benoit Blanc.
Here we have Miss Scarlet, Mr. Green, Colonel Mustard.
It was you in the hallway with the dagger, wasn't it? No, it was not I.
With
It
the
was you.
revolver and the candlestick.
Who killed the telegram girl?
The singing telegram. I had an affair with her. The vet was in the staircase. Him as a vet, oh my god.
Oh no, the
How
maid
the hell
outfit.
would that be?
Oh my god.
I feel like Daniel Craig would be willing to go there. I don't know if I'd necessarily want to see that, but
No, I'm going to see it.
I think he'd be more fun as Mrs. Peacock, maybe. The senator's wife.
I love monkey brain soup.
I host events all the time. I'm very comfortable with starting conversations among strangers.
I'm not afraid of silence.
Flames on the side of my face.
Oh, that. Jesus Christ.
All right, let's get the Craig cut of Clue.
I need somebody like the Bully Maguire thing.
I've been getting so deep into Billy Maguire. It's bad.
I saw him on Family Feud.
Yes. Staff job. Double the money.
He beat up Steve Harvey for the last point. Oh my god. Who's ever doing that, dog? Shout outs to them. Where were we? Daniel Craig.
Sequel
yeah.
to Knives Out.
Get rid of all of these talented actors and actresses. Or is it just actors now? I think it's just, you call actresses actors now. Get rid of all the talented actors and just all Daniel Craig. That would make it better.
I'd honestly rather see Lakeith Stanfield do a solo detective case than Daniel Craig, but I wouldn't mind him tagging along again.
Yeah.
Or just I think some people have been throwing around what if it's a sequel about Marta, which I don't think would work as well. I think that by necessity turns into a legal drama, which I'm not super here for.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't mind if they have her cameo a little bit and just be like, "Hey, how you doing?"
and then
again, not giving us an answer to what she does with the money, but just like
she still has the mug in her hand and a blanket over her. And
yeah, they like get together for drinks at the end or something.
Mm-hmm.
That I wouldn't mind that. The cast member I'm most excited to see in this is Ed Norton.
I
First
had
of all,
a
just to
feeling
see,
you'd say that.
I love Ed Norton.
Yeah, I know.
And I wish he and Daniel Craig were in a movie together that isn't Daniel Craig doing this accent, because oh my god, the chemistry between them they might be too big of personalities. I hear Ed Norton can be very obnoxious while acting, but he's one of my favorite actors.
I think one of the only things I've ever seen him in is
The Incredible Hulk.
Universally one of the worst Marvel movies to people, even though I liked it. The Incredible Hulk.
I haven't seen it, but I'm interested in it because of Ed Norton.
I don't know if you would enjoy it.
I'm not expecting it to be good on its own, but like,
no, I'm saying
I
even
like
with Ed Norton, like he's kind of just bland.
He's not really in big studio things a lot. Like, he tends to be more mid-level indie kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm trying to think what like the biggest movie aside from that he's in is. Maybe like Grand Budapest Hotel, or like
he was in that?
other.
I don't remember
yeah,
that
he
movie.
is. He's part of the Wes Anderson crew now, I think.
I remember Willem Dafoe.
He's in Moonrise Kingdom also.
Willem Dafoe was socking people out in a church in that movie.
Yeah.
Didn't like it though.
You've been very vocal about that at a couple points.
I forgot. Yeah, I don't like that movie.
Yes. Apologies to Mason Lafferty pulling his hair out as we speak. But
was that on my worst decade thing? It might have been. I think
you put it on overrated.
Okay.
Yeah, and he flipped out. Check out our decade recap podcast. I don't know. Sequel to a mystery. Could it work? Maybe. I would kind of rather see Rian Johnson do something else original rather than a sequel. But I'll go see the sequel.
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
It
could be pretty good.
Give me a name for it. Guns in.
Guns in.
Donut hole.
Switchblades around.
Okay.
Weapon and a preposition, I think, is the rule for the sequel name. Nunchucks within.
Hedge clippers below.
Bazookas to the left of.
To the left of?
I don't know.
Oh, man.
Bazookas behind.
Feel free to use any of these, Ryan.
Yeah. These can be like the fake script names for like big things.
Mm.
That's what they're gonna call the next, I don't know, the next Fast and Furious movie code name is gonna be Bazookas Behind.
Mm.
Those don't need. Nobody's looking for the leaked Fast and Furious 10 script though. Like, they don't need to keep that protected.
They're on 9 now. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, well, 10 if you count Hobbs and Shaw, I guess.
Butterfly knife diagonally upward.
Very specific. That's what's gonna happen if they end up doing that and they make like 12 of these.
Yeah, for sure.
It's gonna end up being like the Fast and Furious titles where they gotta mix around all the words.
Mm-hmm.
Flipping the Furious.
Give us your Knives Out sequel.
Yeah,
title
tweet at us.
Tweet at us or put in the comments or whatever. I want to hear some others.
Speaking of comments, if we're all done, we can get into the boilerplate.
Yeah.
We had somebody leave a comment on the YouTube video for our Shrek podcast.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been putting the old podcast episodes on YouTube.
Yeah, I've been liking them.
Okay, thank you. Didn't know who that was, but
it's your boy.
Yeah, we I think Ready or Not is the most recent one that I've put up. But we had a comment. I'm not going to say the commenter's name, but I wanted to bring it up because they refute us on a point that was made. There is motivation for the wolf in the castle joke. He needed a room and a bed to sleep, and Shrek threw him out. They gave him the castle room. Don't diss Wolfie.
Okay.
I'm not going to fully agree, but I'd say yes, I stand corrected, because I think that's in response to I said something about the joke. It's not actually in Shrek, it's in Shrek 2, where it opens with the wolf
Oh
in
yeah.
Fiona's bed in the castle when Prince Charming finds it. And I think I say something like there's no motivation for that joke.
Hmm.
This is fair. There is a reason you might have gone there.
Also, the fact that there's a person out there with the wolf as their favorite character from Shrek.
They don't say it's their favorite. They're just saying give him credit.
They called them Wolfie, Evan.
Fair enough. I definitely I can't claim to have a whole lot of love for that character, but yeah, fair.
More power
We got
to
to do
them.
Shrek 2 someday.
Oh yeah. I really like Shrek too.
I think that is the movie I have seen the most times in my life.
I think. Okay.
Possibly.
Well, you said in your life. I was gonna say out of the Shrek movie series, I was gonna say that might have been the one I saw the most. But you said in life, so I'm gonna
I think it might be. I watched that a lot as a kid.
just let you have that.
Yeah. One of the best sequels out there, I would say, in terms of following up on the original.
You said Spider-Man 2, brilliant but lazy.
You said Wonder Woman 84?
Oh no. Oh no. I haven't watched that movie since we did that podcast.
It's only
again.
been like 6 months.
Yeah.
Also, like, are you really ever going to rewatch it
Uh,
sober? Like,
That's a good question.
come on.
No. Most like I'm probably if I ever do, it's gonna be like in the background while I'm doing something else, like writing.
Okay. Fair enough. I'd rewatch the first one, but like, yeah. Upcoming episodes. Next one probably is going to be Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Right.
And we're
Won't
going
we
to
have
be having a
somebody on
guest
for that?
on. We are going to have a guest on for that. That will be an epic of epic epicness.
What?
That was the tagline for Scott Pilgrim.
Oh.
You as a hater would not know that, but I'm sorry. We're not going to try to convert you, I think, but
Oh
you
man.
there might be, I think if there's any episode where there might be a shouting match, this might be it. So
I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, I think we've built up a good enough rapport that we are able our relationship is at this point where we can bring out the big guns. Scott Pilgrim. Um After that, we're planning Get Out, the other Out movie with Lakeith Stanfield.
Oh.
Boom, connections. Check out our YouTube channel. We've got our old podcasts up there and video essays. And check out our Patreon as well. We recently added an episode there on the two Kingsman movies where we compare both of them.
Okay.
There's also, I put up two versions of it because we have the theatrical cut without our tangents and then the director's cut that has all of our tangents in it.
Oh, creative.
Both are, yeah, because we had a lot of tangents in that one. Good ones, but, some people aren't here for that. So both of them are pretty long, but we make good use of the time. And I think it's a different kind of episode. So if you are not into and also, I should say, it is not the same tone as our Spider-Man episodes. Like we do not slam on the Kingsman movies. We give them a fair shake, but we are not like we don't hate on them like we do with the Spider-Man trilogy. So it's not going to be like that.
$1 for that. You got
$1 a month.
You
$1
spent
a month, yeah.
$5 on a balloon probably at some point. So
That
$1
better have
for
been a
that.
really good balloon.
I really hope so. That balloon better been made out of silk or something. I don't know how that works with helium, but
Yeah. Don't spend your money on a $5 balloon. Spend
that's
it
the
on
lesson.
5 months of the interior analysis Patreon.
That's the lesson for today.
that's the lesson of
Don't
the
buy
day.
expensive balloons.
And also, other people feel free to leave comments on the old podcasts, even if you aren't listening to them on YouTube. That's a way you can comment on specific things. Don't be hateful like some YouTube comment sections, but feel free to take us to task on if you disagree with us. Be constructive. Other things are logos by Kelsey Hendry. I am on Twitter at Davos Watson. You can find the show at INT Analysis 18. Oh, one other thing, I'll let you plug stuff too. I had a different podcast come out. It's not really mine, but I was on a podcast for the Drexel Writing Center. Very, very different from what we do here. And I wouldn't listen to it for like listening to me talk about stuff. It's a very different kind of conversation, and there's going to be more episodes that I may or may not be involved in some of, but like we had a really good discussion. I would say the other three people that I was on the panel with probably made a lot of points that I never would have thought to listen to it for them. They're really good. And we've been working on that for a while at the Writing Center. So I'll link to that in the notes. A lot shorter, too. It's only about 40 minutes or 30 minutes long, I think. Anything you want to plug or handles or anything?
Yes, subscribe to the YouTube channel, int.analysis. Search that on YouTube. We're at a few subscribers. You can listen to old stuff there. Evan's been posting the video essays on there as well. Pretty good. A lot of work goes into those. I'm on Twitter at Jelani T. Kelly. I'm on Instagram, where you could find like my most up-to-date anything on my Instagram stories at Based Phoenix. And I'm on Twitch every Monday through Thursday night at 8 to around 9:30 at J-Based Phoenix. Buy my book on Amazon.
Yeah,
look
Send
up
It
my
Awakening.
name. Yeah.
All right. So thank you for listening, and we'll
Yes.
see you next time.
Donut holes.
Donut holes.